welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Kids are kind of sizzling hot right now, coming off a really nice Tuesday evening in the NBA here. It's Wednesday as Nate and I are bringing you the 7 games that we have here with best bets in this video. Also have a play of props video up as we do each and every weekday, so go ahead and like and subscribe to that page and continue to follow along. Also head to thelines.com and use everything that we have up on the site right now, including that prop finder tool to make sure that you're getting the best juice available to you from all these books that you are making bets with this season. Nate, let's keep things going here and get right into your C's as they take on the Hawks at home.
Yeah, I mean, I thought plus 11 was a lot for the Hawks. It's moved up to plus 13, basically because it seems like DeJounte Murray is going to be out with, lower back tightness, aka trade deadline flu. And he might be, one of the bigger names moved if they can get a suitable callback here. But, Drew Holiday is also questionable for the Celtics, first of all. But if you look at this matchup, they haven't beaten the Hawks by more than 12 at home in 6 years. And last I checked, DeJounte Murray was not on the team the entire time. The Hawks were absolutely terrible at that point in 2018. Not to say that they're great defensively at all by now, but this is the Trae Young show. He's shooting 51-51 since he's come back from that concussion. He is, one of the best offensive players in the league in that span. Hawks are scoring 135 points per game. They are 3-1 in clutch games. They have the most paint points, most second chance points in the NBA in that span. The defense isn't doing anything well, but when you have an offense like that, it's pretty hard to bury that team by 14 points. I mean, the Celtics can do it. But, we're looking at this when they were huge favorites against the Lakers. And at that time, I didn't know that the Lakers were going to sit guys, their two main guys. And then we all know what happened next. Austin Reeves lights them up. I mean, bouncing back against the G League Grizzlies is one thing. It's, the immediate ramifications of Joe Mazzulla being like, yo, we can't take people lightly. We got to come with it. And but that's against a G League team, literally. The Hawks are one of the hottest offensive teams in the league, almost beat the Clippers. And if we look at the Celtics, they're 0-5 against the spread. Their previous 5 at home, prior to beating down Memphis, they've been out rebounded. They're shooting just 35% from 3. They're not getting to the free throw line. I just don't see this as the juggernaut earlier in the season that was able to just bury teams by 14 plus points, regardless of whether DJM plays or not. Look, they did dominate the Hawks in some ways in their last meeting, and they still only won by 10. So I'll just take this huge spread.
Sure. I don't know how to play the Celtics. You know that. This is totally your lane, and I'm going to let you to own it and tail you on it more than anything, because I wouldn't really begin to know how to cap the Celtics even when at home right now. I get everything that's the recency numbers, so all I can think of is them pouring in threes against a team like the Hawks, but probably gonna be some points in this game too either way, but fewer points would or more points would only help the Hawks case in that regard. So I'm going to talk about the Pellies and the Clippers, two teams that I have hated to talk about or bet on or have to cap in any way, and yet somehow I feel some confidence about this game for some reason. So I'm going to go under 231.5 in this one. It has been bet down. Obviously, some other people agreed with me when it was at 235.5. But I still think 231.5 is decent value to get under 230 for these two teams who have gone under that number in both of the first 2 times they played this season. And while both of them have seemed like they're playing a little bit faster over the course of the last roughly 7 to 10 games, not so much when it's the Pellies on the road, and the Clippers have been without Zubac, who is completely off of the injury report. And so when he's completely off of the injury report, I think there's still some value in his props because of the fact that that hasn't been taken into account perhaps. And the idea that he's going to play the 29 to 30 minutes that he was playing before he got hurt. He already had his one game to come back and get ramped back into the minutes and played 18 in a game that he wasn't needed quite as much. And I think he will be needed, obviously, a lot more in this one. Zion's questionable. I actually would like him to be in there for the under, to be honest. It's a bit choppier on offense for the Pels when he's in there. Weirdly, at times, I don't think it's highly correlated, but the numbers over the last year for him in the Pellies are when he's out, they're actually worse on defense. But I don't think he's a particularly good individual defensive player, to be honest with you, outside of just being able to fly in for blocks that, off of other guys. But in terms of not the guy that he's guarding. But either way, like in this one, the other aspect of it that really stuck out to me is like the reason, I think a big reason these two teams have gone under so frequently in recent history is the Clippers are all isolation ball. And we know that. We know that it's just like, it's not even necessarily your turn, my turn. It's like, we're going to do a few things before we get the ball to Kawhi exactly where he wants it, which is standing on the foul line, right? And he's got so much space around him because we've moved guys to the exact spots like Ty Lue is very good at coaching. Let me just end it there. He knows exactly what he's doing to get his guys into spots to play ISO ball. The problem is the Pellies have the best ISO defenders essentially in the league. They're a top 4 team when it comes to defending the isolation. Teams don't really try it on them, so they're giving up like the second fewest points per game when teams are in the isolation per possession. It's like number 1 and number 2 as well, right? That's the impressive part, is like you don't try it on them and you don't succeed when you do try it. Now the Clippers are gonna do what they do. Like they're still gonna play that ISO ball and come in, but with the other thing for the Clips is the defense will be there for them heavily, and that's almost why I like Zion there. I think Ty Lue knows exactly how to like enhance the awful spacing that they normally have when the Pellies have Brandon Ingram and Zion on the floor together, and CJ, honestly, who all seem to, operate in similar positions on the floor. So that's why it gets choppy. And now you're talking about a Clippers team coming in when they play with 2 to 3 days rest, which they're finally back home after a long road trip. Now they're finally well rested. 1-7 to the over when they play with 2 to 3 days rest this season. And that's a trend that like I buy into, because I'm just like, what is the thing that you guys do when you are rested? What's your like calling card? And as good as they've been on offense, they're just a lockdown D, especially when they have Zubac back, who has been one of the best rim protectors in the league this year. Not just having like an above average season for him, he's been excellent, like top 10 in terms of his personal defensive field goal percentage at the rim. So I love him being back in there to slow things down and to play better defense, and the Pelicans to be able to play defense with their healthy guys like Herb Jones.
And you love the fact that James Harden's coming back from Atlanta, right? We talked about fading him and slowing down that offense. I mean, yeah, the Pels, I was looking at the over initially for this game, but then I realized my logic for the Pels is that they were playing way too many fast-paced, high-scoring games. They totally reined it in. 3 straight unders from them, including Spurs and Rockets. And yeah, when the Clippers were able to beat them last time, it was totally defense. They did not necessarily light up this good Pelicans defense, which is now playing much better. So I think both defenses will bring it here. Would rather have the +7 side, even though we don't really fade the Clippers here. So let's just fade them by saying under.
Yep.
My under here, Cleveland at Washington, under 234.5, or the Wizards team total under 111.5, if that makes you more comfortable. They're basically the same bet. We're basically fading the Wizards offense to have no ability to score against an elite Cavs defense, and the Cavs to not be a team that's going to, drag you, going to score 130 plus, because that's what this total is basically implying. Like the Wizards are scoring 107 in their last 7 games here. Last 8, they had gone under in 7 straight before the Suns came in and dropped 140. And again, the Cavs are just not that type of team. They did score 140 on the Wizards to start this hot streak on impossibly good shooting splits. I say impossibly, but then they actually replicated it the very next game, Josh. It was one of those home things. But they still only scored 114 because there were 24 fewer field goal attempts, because that was, something the Wizards adjusted to. Is like, all right, maybe we slow it down a little bit here. Maybe we limit the 3-point attempts. And that's what they've actually done really well. It's crazy to say like the Wizards are doing something defensively well, but they've allowed the second fewest 3-point attempts in this last 8 here, holding opponent to just 10 3-point makes, to just 35% from 3. So I mean, they can at least hang around a little bit, keep this Cavs team, which doesn't depend on scoring to win, right? I mean, it's their defense. They're 10-4 to the under on the road since the start of December, scoring 112 in those games. If they face a bad offense, it's basically under. Spurs, Grizzlies, Hawks without Trey, Chicago, Miami, etc. And then you flip it on the other side, like, we're the only teams the Wizards have gotten to 110 against. Spurs twice, Pistons twice, Hawks twice, the Thunder, and then they got there barely in garbage time against the Suns. So, yeah, I'll take them to stay at 110 or lower, and then the Cavs to not really drag this over the total.
Yeah, I support the logic there. I didn't spend as much time looking at this particular game, but everything you're saying adds up. For I mean, the Cavs D I'll support no matter what. And with the Wizards, yeah, I was also looking at how they've definitely been going under overall in general. And it's I guess a little bit of better defense. It's also just a lack of offense. So like you said, there's both. You're sort of playing this from the angle of I'm fading the Wizards, but like I also like the game under because I don't know that the Cavs will keep like bringing it necessarily after they have a decent sized lead in this one. But let me close it out with the Dubs talking about Philly. And the reason I'm even talking about this game is because I think Tyrese Maxey is out, even though he's still listed as questionable. Everything that the books have done since the official questionable tag for Maxey last night has been to change their spreads as though he's not playing, right? The two key ones that I'm looking at are the original spread of this game was -1.5 for the Warriors, who are on the road still. And if they hadn't had an impressive win against the Nets, it was impressive because the Warriors won on the road in a low scoring game. But I heard myself say impressive win against the Nets. And I was like, I can't finish that sentence in all seriousness. And that brings me to how I still don't believe in them at all. And I don't believe in their offense, but just as importantly, who is going to score for the Sixers outside of Tobias Harris once you lose Tyrese Maxey? Now you don't have he or JoJo Embiid or D'Anthony Melton or Robert Covington or Nick Batum. Even more importantly, Nick Batum has actually played some decent minutes for them, being able to score off the three and step inside and hit the mid range. So without those guys, I'm like, B-ball Paul is going to score, I guess. Like I don't believe in this offense at all. Kelly Oubre is going to be up at 19.5. But the other thing that indicates the books are like, Maxey's not playing is Tobias Harris went from 21.5 points on his points prop to 25.5 points over the last like 12 hours. Somebody hit it back down from 25 and was like, all right, let's tone it down. And now it's back to 24.5. But I've been closely monitoring this stuff for the last like 3 hours. And that's been the fluctuation of Toby Harris props as it becomes more and more clear to people that like Maxey doesn't seem like someone knows that Maxey isn't playing because the books all shot it up at the same time after one of them figured it out, etc. So the thing with the under here is that scares you is this Sixers team cannot D up at all pretty much anywhere on the floor. The thing that they are like doing decently well is limiting second chance points. And the Dubs have been crashing the offensive glass and the glass in general because they're also limiting all of your second chance points and getting defensive rebounds. And they've slowed things down after we saw them go crazy for 10 games in a row. That's kind of what I'm banking this on as well, is they're finishing up a road trip. They've started to slow down as the road trip has come to the end of it. And now, if you look at the last 5 games, they're fourth in defensive rating, 14th in offensive rating, and that was completely flipped for the previous 10 games where they were just running and gunning, games averaging like 252 or something, 251 over the course of their prior 7 games or so. Now that you look at the last 5, it has slowed down. The pace on the road has been a 98 over the last 7, whereas they were playing, like I said, overall a 101 pace for a number of games in a row. And just like I said, without Maxey in there, this offense is going to be stagnant because if you look at that 76ers offense, man, over the course of the last however many games you want to take, especially the last 5 for this team, like you're just 30 and they're dead last in terms of everything down low. Obviously, scoring, paint, field goal percentage, the amount of points that they're getting. They're shooting everywhere from everywhere outside of corner and really even the quarter 3. It's just been awful. Bottom 5 in the league over the course of the last 5. You really realize, well, obviously they don't have D'Anthony Melton. A lot of their 3-point shooting at times, especially Maxey's, was heavily dependent on being catch and shoot guys because Joel was able to get assists out from the post, which Nick Nurse has helped him with this year. So if you want to fade just the 76ers points because you look at their defense and you're like, I don't know. I think even the Warriors are going to get 120 on them. I can see that, but the Warriors have not scored 120 on the road, but once out of their last 5 road games. So it just seems like 119.5 is high for them. And overall for the game, I don't trust Philly to score. So I'll just take the under 236.5 as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen this in a while. That use the odds finder tool, and Oubre's at 16.5 points, half the books, 19.5 at the others. Same thing with Tobias. It's just everyone's just like trying to guess whether Maxey's going to miss this game.
Right.
And yeah, the Sixers are hella fadeable if he is. Like, so yeah, whether you want to bet on like Oubre props because somebody's got to score, he's going to be able to shoot like 18 times. Go for it. I would just take the Warriors spread here. I mean, yeah. we saw the Sixers with nobody in there give up 130 to Portland. Remember, so the Warriors could light it up. This, they haven't hit 120 in a while. This might be the night.
Yeah, that's fair, and I do think the 5 is still a good number in the really seemingly slim chance that Tyrese Maxey plays and goes for 40. That would be how this game stays under 5. So it does seem like that's a slightly smaller chance of happening than not. So that's all the time we have for you in best bets, though. Do subscribe to that page if you would. We also have a play of props video up for you where we got 4 of those, 2 each. So until we see you then, happy betting.